I'm a big fan of keeping things simple, of not overcomplicating things. I like to take complex concepts, study them, and break them down into easy to understand chunks. I remember a professor in college once telling me that if I couldn't explain a concept to a child, then I didn't really fully understand that concept myself. And this love for simplicity has served me well as I deep dive into the world of exercise and nutrition. While it's true that nutritional science and human kinesiology can be vastly convoluted, what you should eat and how you should move isn't, or at least it shouldn't be. But that's not the message that we hear. We're constantly bombarded with overly complicated messages on what we should eat or exactly what exercise program is ideal, primarily by people trying to sell us something and preying on our instant gratification desires by promising fabulous results in an unrealistic time frame. My guest today is basically the Godfather of strength and conditioning and is a refreshing voice in today's tangled world of fitness and diet fads. Buckle up, we're in for a fun ride as we explore how old school concepts can and should be applied to today's fast-paced culture. Hello and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, and my mission is to help you get into the best shape of your life, regardless of your age, so that you can show up in life as the healthiest, strongest, most vital version of yourself. Before we dive into today's show, I want to let you know that there's still a couple of weeks left to enroll in my Holiday Accountability Program. This is a program that runs from November 1st to December 31st, and it's designed to help keep you on track through the holiday season to ensure you meet your nutrition and exercise goals. Whether those goals are simply not to pack on those excess holiday pounds, or you're trying to lose weight or get stronger. It's free to join, and all you need to do to enroll is send me an email at coach@silveredgefitness.com stating that you want in. You can check out all the details to see what's included over at silveredgefitness.com/holiday, or you can listen to my podcast titled Coach's Corner, Now is the Time to Put a Holiday Strategy in Place, that I published a few weeks ago. I hope to see you in there. Now let's get on with today's show. My guest today is Dan John. Dan is a 63-year-old author, speaker, coach, and strength athlete with 40-plus years of strength and conditioning experience and expertise. In this episode, Dan shares his own fitness journey as well as his thoughts on exactly how to get and stay strong. He outlines high-level life strategies as well as practical advice on aging well. I started our conversation by asking Dan how he got interested in strength training and sports.
My story seldom told, as I say in Greece. When I was young, my aunt died and she left us $500. So my brothers went to Sears and they bought the Ted Williams barbell set. And I have it in here somewhere. I just saw it the other day. And it has a training manual in there. And it's just interesting because what Ted Williams told us in 1965 on how to lift weights is basically how I tell people in this millennia how to lift weights, So I started lifting weights and my goal was to lift that bar with 10-pound plates on both sides. And the first I fell in love with weightlifting almost right away. So I was 7 or 8 years old, I guess. And I just liked the idea that if you did something every day, you got better at it. And I wanted to be a little bit more muscly, I guess. And not long after I bought my first Strength and Health magazine. And those are all the older magazines up there. And I still pull them off the shelf every so often and say, wow, why did I not pay attention to this guy? And why the hell did I listen to this idiot? So I lifted, and it was off and on. And when I was getting ready to play football, I went to Orange Library there in my hometown, and I got this book here, Bodybuilding and Self-Defense by Miles Callum. And I'll tell you an interesting, funny thing. is that it's reviewed in one of these magazines up here. I just saw it the other day. I'm reading this 1964 magazine, and it reviews the book that changed my life. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And again, just like that book from Ted Williams from Sears, it was the fundamentals, it was the basics, put weights up over your head and pick them up. And I made that my mission statement in 2002. The body's one piece. There's basically three kinds of weightlifting, which is you put the weight overhead, you pick it up off the ground, or you carry it for time or distance. And of course, all training is complementary. And it's just funny to think that the roots of all this were, I still had brothers in Vietnam when I was learning this stuff. I mean, Nixon was president when I was learning all this stuff. And the best information I ever got was from Ted Williams and Miles Callum. And I look back today, and one of my friends made fun of the book. And I said, if you just put a guy with tatted him up and put him in board shorts and, had the whole Ultimate Fighter bullshit going on, this would be a bestseller today because the information's better than the crap we see today. And just, these guys are dressed in 1960s physical education stuff. And I lifted weights, and I started collecting neighborhood, when people would, not use their plates anymore. I would, Betty Barolotti would say, my sons don't lift. Do you want the weights? And I would go up and take their 110 pounds worth of weights. And I invented my own bench press, and I saved up money for a couple of years and bought a Sears incline bench press, which has a funny story to it. When I went off to college, I gave it to my cousin Joey, who played professional rugby. When he retired, he gave it to our cousin Keith, who became the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. So that incline bench has a little bit of, it's got some good juju about it. When I went to ninth grade, I went to Southwood Junior High, and I met Dave Freeman and Coach LaHouse. Shoot, his name just dropped out of my head, but he was a great one too. Coach Goulet. And they had the Southwood program, which was power clean, military, front squat, and bench press. And that's still a foundational program for me. In fact, when in doubt, I go back to those 4 exercises still. Tossing a deadlift and a farmer walk. When I went to high school, I became kind of known as a bench presser because I could press, which I only figured out within the last few months. And I made good progress in high school. I got up to about 162 pounds. I was very fast. I was a good discus thrower. I threw 170, weighing 162. But no one had an interest in a 162-pound discus thrower. It's funny because they will recruit these 180-foot throwers who are just sometimes just lucky. And it sounds weird to say that. And they go off to these Division I schools, and they throw 140 feet, and they don't improve because they've always been the biggest kid. And, a guy like me who's pissed off and hungry comes up. I went to Skyline College, and at that time I met Dick Notmeyer, and Dick taught me the Olympic lifts. And that was, of course, the most important 2 years, the most wonderful 2 years of my life. And I don't want my daughters to hear that. But it was just a marvelous time. Dick was just amazing. I still talk to him all the time. He's turning 90, and he still makes me laugh. The last time we talked, he said, telling you something, Danny, I think all that good nutrition and eating protein and working out, I think it helps you long term. I'm like, yeah, I think so too.
Go figure, right?
He's 90, and he can either lift or bike every day. He can't lift and bike every day, which is kind of impressive. That's the kind of thing I want to bitch about when I'm 90. Mm-hmm. And then after those 2 years at junior college, where I led Skyline College to their first state championship. I was the team captain and MVP and state champion on that state championship team. I went off to Utah State, which had been my goal from the ninth grade, and threw for Coach Mon. And after that, I got a master's and taught and competed. And I lost about a decade between going to the Middle East and getting sick and life. And early 90s, I started training normally again. And I lucked out in a way because when I turned about 40, 41, the internet started to come up. And I thought the internet was a joke. But I got on a forum and started answering people's questions. And people liked the fact that I, A, could write a full sentence, and B, I could write paragraphs. And then pretty soon those forum questions became a FAQ, frequently asked question. That became, in 1998, I started my first website. And it's interesting because the best years of my career were in my late 40s, as an open thrower. In my late 40s, after I broke my wrist and discovered loaded carries. So Olympic lifts, then loaded carries. And then I discovered with Pavel, we went over this thing called easy strength. And I mean, I would say right now that, Olympic lift, loaded carries, and easy strength answer a whole bunch of questions. I wish I'd have known. Of course, I couldn't have convinced myself as a youth to do, what this easy strength takes us right back to the Ted Williams book and the Miles Cowell's book. It takes us right back, put weights overhead, lift them off the ground for 2 sets of 5. That's what Ted Williams told me in 1965. It took me a lifetime to discover what I learned in the beginning.
It is funny how that we've seemed to have gone away from these basics. I guess maybe because they're not sexy, they don't sell as well in this age of constant barragement with social media. And
absolutely,
it's not a sexy solution. But I think a lot of people miss the fact of, like you said, in the 1960s, there are these people writing these very basic manuals of these very simple compound lifts, and lo and behold, they're kind of having a renaissance, if you will. But the fact is, that's what works, right? It's what's always worked. It's that tried and true method. And I think that people tend to overcomplicate programming and exercise greatly for, I suppose, a number of different reasons. But
it sells.
It sells. And I suppose that's the number one reason is money.
Yeah. I mean, I just read someone, they had a ad for their thing. The world's finest kettlebell coach. Well, how the hell can you say, and if you actually join that cert, because I just read this nonsense and these convoluted programs and these miracle supplements, and I got nothing against supplements. I got nothing against supplements. I got nothing against complicated programs, but we all just know. I mean, I got to tell you, for supplements, if you didn't eat, like I eat a lot of fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut, and I eat vegetables at every meal. Tell me the supplements are better than. Well, if you're eating like that, then you don't need a supplement. Well, then basically what you just said is your supplements are bullshit because you have lazy clients. Yeah. If you have lazy clients, you sell them supplements. But that, I wouldn't. It's strange, and it kind of bothers me in a way when people say, "Oh, Dan, he makes things simple." I don't think people realize how difficult it is to carve away so much crap and then say, "Okay, this works. Yeah. This works. It's repeatable. It's doable." Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm doing this program now. I'm 64, and it's called Easy Strength for Fat Loss with Olympic Lifting, which I consider the snappiest title I've ever come up with.
That's pretty snappy, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, it's 3 exercises for 3 sets of 3 days a week, and then I go for a walk, and I'm making some of the best progress I have in my life. And when I explain that to people, they keep trying to look behind the curtain. There's nothing behind the curtain.
Right.
It's wait, how does front squat, snatching, squat, clean, and press, how does that, lead to fat loss? Well, because it does, and so it is hard. I find myself always in a weird place. I just did a workshop in New York City, the RKC2, the second level kettlebell. And I was talking with one of the attendees, one of our graduates, one of our newly certified RKC2s yesterday. And she said something interesting about how I model certain things so well. And when she thought about it that night after the first night, she was like, she wanted to go back and apologize to all of her clients because she'd been over cueing so much. So cueing is what you say during a movement, and coaching is what you say after the movement. So here are the 3 cues I use: squeeze, stay tall, go, go, go. And I always joke that I invented the third go. Before me, it was just go, go. I invented go, go, go. So anytime you say all 3 goes in a row, you really should send me money. Okay,
that's right. Yeah, send some royalties.
And it's weird because you take something as simple as what I just said there. So when I'm cueing you and you're doing a front squat, my cues might be squeeze and stay tall and go, and yet while you're resting, while we're talking, then I coach you. That thing that is so simple that I just said is something I really didn't catch for decades in my own career. I missed that obvious point I just made to you. And I think that's why it's so crucial that we're in community, is that I have friends I bounce ideas across. I have a group that trains with me every morning for free at 9:30. We call it intentional community. We get together on purpose to train together. Now, I do some different things than most of them. Most of them do a little bit more hypertrophy work, and I do, the Olympic lifts. But then we all go for a walk together after. After the walk, we go to brunch a couple days a week, and it's really nice. But That's why it's so important to stay in community, not separate yourself by saying that you're hi, I'm Dan John, and I'm the best longevity coach in the world, and everyone else sucks and doesn't know crap. Well, that doesn't build community. That doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. So there you go. There's my part of my vita. And then to finish up, I just retired as a professor of religious studies, but I'm still teaching at St. Mary's University in London in strength and conditioning. So I still have my hand on the research and academic side, which most people don't know about me, which is kind of interesting. Most people don't know my academic side. My first published work, in fact, I'm retyping it now. My first published work is Conservation of Detail, a new look at the Beowulf poet. And I'm retyping that because I don't want that to get lost in the dustbin of history. So,
yeah,
so
right on.
Yeah. So my second published work was on King Arthur, and my third was on Utah 4-H clubs.
No, I think you're right. A lot of people might miss that. A lot of people know who you are, have heard of you, certainly people that have come in contact with you in your community. But you're kind of the poet laureate of strength and conditioning. You do a tremendous amount of writing. Mm-hmm. And just even listening to you speak, while you give this kind of advice you're talking about, really simple, solid, foundational advice, you also have a way of speaking, and you don't shy away from subjects that are not directly related to strength and conditioning necessarily. So talk to us a little bit about your writing career. Obviously, you started in academia and mm-hmm. writing there, but you've done a tremendous amount of writing, right? Your website is full of blogs, and you've mm-hmm. written a number of books. And I've heard you talk about your journaling. You've got journals, I believe, that go pretty much back for as long as you do, as long as you've been exercising. So talk to us about 1971. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about writing and its importance in your life.
Well, there's another thing. Most people don't know I had a column, a weekly column for 10 years on religious education, which actually I think is kind of a good idea, because that actually, I had a great man by the late Jack Schrader. Jack would come up after the articles were published, and he'd put the article down on a piece of paper like this, if you can see my hand, and he would take the finger and he'd go like this. He'd go, okay, right there, Danny, right there. And I go, what? He goes, that's where you caught your audience. Okay. And then a couple weeks later, Jack would come back up and he'd go, okay. And then he'd flip the page. And then he would just take the paper and walk away, which means I never connected.
Yeah.
I never connected. And then when I figured out how to do this, he would say, this was a great article, because there was like 6 or 7 places where you made the reader go back to either get a stupid joke or get a reference, so he taught me how to write in those 520-ish columns. Yeah, of course, the whole thing changed. I went to Charles Staley, had a boot camp, and he lost his speaker. And at the last minute, Mike Pekowski said, well, Dan John can speak for an hour. And Charles said, well, who the hell's Dan John? And so I came down and I spoke, and Chris Schugert from T-Nation was there, and he wrote a review of it. And he said, anytime, anywhere Dan John speaks, you got to be there. So I went from speaking to probably 20 people to being the keynote, 600 people. But what people miss when they hear that story is those decades of writing and teaching and coaching. So when the opportunity came, I was ready to go. But what's interesting about that is that Chris interviewed me, and the interview's still up there. It's called Interview with an Old School Soldier, which I thought was just a hilarious title. And then they asked me to write an article, and it wasn't, I look back on it, it was a terrible article, but at the time they published it, and it was a religious studies professor looks at the world of weight training. And I talked about the cults that we have in weight training, and I was right. I mean, I wrote the article before CrossFit came out. This is when the kettlebell community was clearly, I love the people, but some of the people took it way too seriously. And I got a check for that, and I looked at this. So there's a piece of paper came in the mail about this big, Kevin. I don't want to, you're too young to know what a check is, but it had a number on it, and it was a number that was a big number. It had a comma in the number, and as a school teacher, I'd never seen a check with a comma in it before. And at that moment, I said to myself, yeah, Beowulf, King Arthur, God bless them. God, right. Sacred scripture, religious studies. That's great. I'm writing strength articles, and I did because here's the thing though. I love writing articles about weightlifting. I love it. And so, But this last 2 weeks, I've probably knocked out 200, 200 being exaggeration, but not by much. Well over 160, 170 pages of information for this new course I'm putting up on the site for free. And not one time did I find that to be, it's not like 1 second where I went, I don't know if you've ever done lots of front squats, but like 3 sets on 3 on the front squat, you rack it on number 9. It's like, yeah, okay. But if you walked up right after and said, okay, I want 5 more sets of 3, you'd be like, I didn't have that, not 1 minute of that writing did I have that, I got to write about this, not one moment of, and I know that sounds odd, but if the gentle listener probably has moments in their life where, well, Father Michael Heim's great. He's got a 3-point, you don't mind me rambling, do you?
Ramble on. Let's hear it.
Ramble on. 3-point thing about, about your life, what you want to do. He, like me, I mean, a lot of people say, pursue your passion, just whatever you're passionate about. And Father Michael Heim separated about a little bit better, and I like this. 1, do you love it? Do you love it? Now, passion means, are you willing to suffer for it? But do you love it? It's just a slight different. I mean, you can just look behind me. That's all strength conditioning stuff. And that's, I don't know, 1/5 of my library. I mean, I love this stuff. I mean, not long ago, I was lifting weights in my garage, snatching and front squatting and cleaning. I love it. Number 2, are you good at it? And for me, I think I am. I start off okay, I got to tell you something. So I had a fairly serious speech impediment as a kid, okay? And my cousin, Bill, says to my brother, he goes, what's Danny doing now? And Gary says, well, he's giving speeches all over the world. And Bill said, Danny can talk? Because I never talked as a kid, or rarely did. Now, by the way, some asshole said something mean about my lisp and on my Instagram, and not only did I ban him, or whatever you call that thing, but I'd like to beat him up because I don't think that's appropriate. But
yeah, some childhood feelings coming out there. Yeah.
I love strength and conditioning, and I think I'm really good at it. And sometimes, I'll be standing around with these young strength coaches, and no one will give me a job, and it's like, well, no one gave me a job either. I never once was given a job. If you get a chance, there's a great book. C. Northcott Parkinson's book, Parkinson's Law. And there's a system in the book. It's a funny book from the 1950s about business. And it's the funniest book I've ever read in a lot of ways. He talks about how you hire. And there is something he calls it the Chinese method. It's when anybody who applies for the job, by definition, isn't qualified. And so the whole book is like that. And it's a very, very funny chapter. And I've always felt as a strength coach, anybody who wants to be a strength coach is by definition too stupid to actually be a strength coach. You got to be coerced into being a strength coach. The hours are terrible. The money is horrible. If you lose a game, you're the person they blame. It's a horrible job. Why would anyone want to do this? Sunday night, one of my former students was at my daughter's house. And he spoke so highly on my strength courses that it made me want to get back in and make a difference. So I'm getting drooly right now. Let's get back out there.
Got to get back in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So those 3 things, do you love it? Are you good at it? Do people want you to do it? I mean, that is just some of the best life advice I've ever heard in my life. Because if you don't love it, this is a tough career to be in if you don't love it. I've watched people who are personal trainers where I think the dew is off the rose, the gilt is off the lily, or whatever and you can tell they're just 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Going through the motions. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like to be in that situation where I'm drooling again,
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm 100% with you. If what you're doing, whatever that is, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's writing, whether it's accounting, if it doesn't light you up, if it doesn't make your inner light shine out so that others can see it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You should probably look a little more closely for your purpose. So yeah, you obviously love strength conditioning. You love writing. You love talking about it. You're good at those things. And clearly there's an audience that wants you to continue doing those things. Now, so for folks listening to this right now, and they're maybe just being introduced to you, which book would you point them to? What's the best one for them to start with?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. Okay. I think I have an answer. Here, and do you want the Chinese edition of it?
No, probably English.
I have a book called Intervention. Now, it's 10 questions in the book, but let me summarize them. Do you want me to just summarize the entire book so they save themselves some money?
Summarize it, and if people want to get all the details, we'll drop it into the show notes here. I'll link to the book.
Appreciate that. Yeah. On Target Publishing, otpbooks.com is the best place because, okay, I don't mind you buying the books at Amazon. I might as well just give it to you for free because I get the same amount back. But otpbooks.com, when you buy the printed book, you also get the e-file and you get the audio for the same price that you would just get the printed book.
And that's an instant access thing too, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you get to hear the dulcet tones of Dan John reading his own book.
Yeah.
Larry has talked about when she's heard my raw footage, because all you got to do, if you have somebody with a speech impediment of any kind, if you put a microphone in front of them and say, now read this. So I guess the number of times I drop the F-bomb is, quite. And I guess it's just hilarious how I guess my self-talk is hilarious on it because I just go off in these rants and then I audibly talk myself back into being fine again and then reading. But the intervention.
There's a market for that bloopers reel somewhere. I'm going to throw that out here. Okay.
So number one, Kevin, is what's your goal? And then we stop right there because what I just said is a lot of nonsense. That phrase I just said is nonsense. And by the way, I'm not trying to cross-sell to the people, but I have a workshop on the university called goal setting. And I'm going to summarize the basics from here. Here's the problem we have. Most of us come from the goal setting world from sports performance. So as a discus thrower, if you throw, do you want meters or feet? What would you rather?
Meters is fine. Whatever you're more comfortable with. Yep.
Okay.
Our audience will figure it out one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a 50-meter thrower. That is who you are. If you're a 50-meter discus thrower, that literally, we're done. That's the nice thing about being a track and field coach. You are your number. Okay. So, if you throw 50 feet in the shot, you're a 50-foot shot putter. If you throw 50 meters in the discus, that's who you are. And your goal is to go to 55 meters. A, 50 meters, B, 55 meters, and A2B is the process, the system we use. If you're working with me and a couple of weeks later, you're at 52 meters, 53 meters, we can infer that we're on the right track. If you're at 40 meters, I could also say, well, it's way in the off season. We've changed your technique. We're working on some different things. We're teaching the snatch and clean and jerk. Yeah, you're going to have a couple of weeks where the throws come down. Okay. But if in the middle of the season you're throwing 40, then you can fire me. Okay. The problem is that everybody uses the athletics model for goal setting, A to B. It does work a little bit with like retirement because you're starting off age 22, where I suggest you start saving for retirement like I did. You put aside 10%, just like you were told. And then when you're at a certain age, you retire like I did. You start off with $0 or $1 and you end up with enough to retire on. Those are probably the only two examples, sports and retirement. Most people are what Steve Letterbetter calls A, not A clients. And this is important. I'm going to say, what's your goal, Kevin? You say, well, I want to look like the guy on the cover of that magazine. And I'll try not to laugh out loud, okay? Because he's a fitness model. He's probably 5'2". He hasn't had a carbohydrate since, he was born. And he looks really good in pictures, but he can't dribble a basketball, as I discovered when I met fitness models. They look really good. They have no skill set. But what you're saying, Kevin, how old are you?
57.
How old?
57.
Oh, you're just a baby, for God's sakes. But okay. Yeah. There has to be times where you look or think something and you say, this isn't me. For me, hi, I'm Dan John. I still think I'm a senior at Utah State. The best looking girl on the campus is my girlfriend. My picture's in the school paper every week. When they hired a new president at the university, he had a picture this big, and I had a big picture this big in the school paper. I had a 4.0. I could drink beer every night, roll out of bed, Olympic lift, throw the discus shot, and hammer, destroy people on the weekends. That's what I think I am. So you see this guy, 64-year-old Dan John here? Kevin, you see this guy? That's not me. That's not me. I'm 21. I've got huge traps. I got massive arms. Great pecs. I mean, I'm concerned because I'm too lean, you know? And so, I'm drinking all this beer to get bigger so I can handle more training volume. That's who I am. That's what not A goal setting is. And so what you do with that is you try to get the person to say, let's say who you are now. And I used to call it A to Z thinking, is that, you want to be the Edna wants to be on the cover of Shape, but she's 57 years old. She's had 4 kids. She hasn't pushed away a carbohydrate since, the Ford administration. And, things have changed. So that's part 1. Part 2 is an assignment we give, and it's called the 5-2 assignment. Are we okay on time?
We're fine on time. Yep.
Sure. The 5-2 assignment is this. You start off, and the basic one I usually use with people at workshops is this. It's financial and physical. So you're 57 now, right?
Yep.
Number 1 is, what do you want to be doing 2 decades from now? So, my grandson Leo's upstairs right now. And when he turns 16, I'll be 80. No one in my family's made it to 80. I'm 64, so that'll be 84. What do I want to be like in 2 decades? Well, Kevin, I want to be alive. I want to have clear thoughts. I want to move well. I like Art Devaney teaches, vanity is a wonderful thing after 50, because if you look good, you probably move good. It flips. If you look good, you probably move good. Very few people who look really good after 50 don't move well. So the first thing I would say to you, okay, physically, what do you want to look like, Kevin, when you're 77? What do you want to look like? How do you want to move? How do you want to feel? And then what can you do? Well, hang on. Well, the answer is going to be, what can you do today to get you there 2 decades? And then the next thing we talk about is, what do you want to be like 2 years from now? 2 decades, 2 years. So that's when I'm 66. A couple of things that are going on in my life right now should be cleaned up by then. I'm going to have new doors, interior doors in the house, because the guy comes Wednesday and we're replacing all the doors. Physically, I'd like to weigh, I'm trying to get down to 96 kilos to lift at that class, 211. I weigh 218. So in 2 years, actually by January, I'd like to weigh 211 so I can lift in the next up. The great thing about being a master's athlete is every birthday, there's a birthday every so often where you get to pop up and be.
And then you're the young guy in the group.
The young guy in the group, yeah.
You're the young gun. That's right. Go get it.
The nice thing with my size is there's very few people alive at my size at my age. So it works out pretty nice,
Mm-hmm.
So in 2 years, I'd like to weigh 211 or maybe a little less. And financially, I've got some goals. Okay, 2 decades, 2 years. And then we go 2 months from now. So by December, my goal is to get down to 211. So, what if I weighed 216 by December? Well, that's a pretty 2 pounds in 2 months. I don't think that's outrageous. Do you?
Nope.
I'll do Rusty Moore's fat loss boost once, and that'll probably do it by itself.
And you'll have it done. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's that easy. Okay. That's believable. And then the last 2 are tomorrow and today. So that's why I'm a big believer in this thing. I call them pirate maps. It's a daily plan of what to do. Can I go into depth on this?
Please do.
So, pirate map. Go to St. John's Island, find the white coconut tree, take 7 paces to the west, dig down. Boom, 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 boom. Right? 1. Before I go to bed, I make my to-do list. There's a piece of paper in the room somewhere that says podcast with you. It's right over there on that other desk.
Got mine right here.
Make
My to-dos for
Pat,
today.
7 o'clock, Pat Flynn. Wait, 7 o'clock, get up. 8 o'clock, Pat Flynn. Tonic and walk, Kevin. It's all listed out. When I wake up in the morning, I meditate 15 minutes every day, no matter what. If I can't do 15, I do the 1 moment meditation, a very simple app. In fact, you can make it on your own. It's a stopwatch. 1 minute. I count my breaths for 1 minute, and I try to push away the thoughts. I use brain.fm for my meditations. I used to use YouTube.
Big fan of brain.fm myself.
Huge. Okay. I used to use YouTube, but now they have commercials.
Yeah, not so good for meditating.
Yeah, so here you are. The wind is blowing across.
Getting your Zen on.
The new Ram 4000.
Right, exactly. Nope.
Number 3, twice a day, kimchi. And then I try to eat vegetables at every meal. And then the second to last one is 3 days a week I Olympic lift. 2 days a week I do tonic. 7 days a week I walk. And then the last one, number 5, is make a difference. So what I try to do is, my thought is that the best thing I can do to make it 2 decades from now is eat fermented food, eat fiber, eat vegetables, sleep well, and exercise. Those are the things. Obviously, wearing my seatbelt isn't in there. Having the fire alarms working isn't in there. Flossing my teeth, because I'm very good at it, isn't in there. But that's the goal-setting assignment. And okay, so that's part 1. What's your goal is that's it. And what I try to do is I try to do all these things. And very often when you get through the 5-2 assignment, people's goals change. Because it's not just, I want to lose this. And they stand up and they grab the outside of their butt cheek, which makes no sense to me. Why are you standing up at a party grabbing your butt cheek? For me, I don't need that. Or they grab the muffin top, and I don't need that. But if you say in 2 decades, I want to be around for my son. I want to be around for my daughter. I want to be around for, whatever. All of a sudden it's got some texture to it. It's got some taste to it. There's others. There's a lot more to it, but those are the basic tools. And very often when you finish this little thing and you start on the person's daily pirate map, it can be as simple as, I'm going to drink 2 glasses of water a day at first. Now we're going to up that over time, But what I want you to do is, B.J. Fogg, the great Stanford psychologist, he's got that thing where I want you to floss 1 tooth. I didn't say all your teeth.
Yeah. 1.
Is that doable? Yeah, I can floss 1 tooth. Okay, I'll call you tomorrow. Did you floss that 1 tooth? No, I didn't get floss that tooth. And then so really what you want to do up over the 2 decades, when I think about how I retired really early, there wasn't a single secret to it. It was just all those bricks. And it was just a brick at a time. And all of a sudden, I had a fair amount of, money. When people say, Dan, like I've had 4 Olympic lifting meets this year. Well, how do you do it? How do you get back on the platform? Well, I sign up I get the card, I mail the check, I go to the meet, I register online. Why did you think this was complicated? You know what I mean? So after that, number 2, and this is a tough one. How old are you? Kevin, how old are you?
I'm 57.
And how old will you be in a year?
I'll be 58.
It's funny. Almost universally, that's what happens every time. Almost universally, when I ask somebody how old they are and then how old in a year, it's always 1 year older. And the reason I bring up how old are you is because a lot of people need to be reminded they're not 14 anymore. Dan, I was in the best shape of my life when I was a high school wrestler. Well, how old were you? 14. Really? Did you get any taller since then? Yes, I did. What did you do to get in shape for wrestling? Well, when you think about what you did to get in shape for high school wrestling, are you willing to do that now? And don't forget, you came out, mom told you to eat breakfast, you had the school lady made you lunch, and then you came home and breakfast was waiting for you. And then you probably, like growing up, we didn't have CBS at our home because we couldn't get it. Our neighbors could get CBS, we couldn't. So to watch the Beatles for the first time on the Ed Sullivan Show, we had to go to our cousin's house. I had ABC and NBC to watch in my youth, and those were the two options. And then later, Channel 2 and Channel 13 showed up in there in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then public PBS. There wasn't a lot of
Not too many distractions. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're talking about getting in the shape you were in high school, when your distractions were ABC or NBC, to play street football or street basketball, to either sit around the house and do chores because mom was yelling at you, or get out of the house and go play basketball, you chose to go out. So yet you have to remind you. Hope the gentle listener, I didn't lose him yet, but you have to remind your clients and yourself that it's not 1971. And you can't go back and get in shape that you were as a high school wrestler because there's a lot of changes. Do you have 3 hours to sit in a hot box, which is what a high school wrestling room, padded hot box, with a bunch of other people, and do push-ups and sit-ups and handstand push-ups and roll around for 2 or 3 hours every day, 6 days a week? Well, and if you do, you're going to get in pretty damn good shape doing that, because that's
yes, you are.
That's right. You're going to smell really bad when you get out of that wrestling room. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So that's number 2, and I don't remember the third one, but it's basically we covered it. So
yeah.
And intervention really is the number one thing I try to do is tell people that you are in this space at this time. This is who you are. I don't want to hear who you are not. This is who you are, and that's the intervention process. And the word intervention means literally intervention, like you'd see in How I Met Your Mother or all the TV shows. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of information, a lot of gold to be gleaned there. And certainly I think that a lot of us do have this romantic notion of when I was in college, when I was in high school, and when this happens. But the reality is we are here now, where we are now. And certainly you are a different human being now. You don't have the same hormonal profile that you did when you were a 16-year-old male or an 18-year-old female athlete. But that's not to say that we still can't get stronger, that we can't increase performance, that we can't be in great shape, and that we can't be healthy, strong, and vital. And in fact, that we should be, because to your point, where do you want to be 2 years from now? Or bigger picture, strategically speaking, where do you want to be in 2 decades? And what you do now is going to have a big impact on where you're going to be
just say this.
2 or 20 years from now.
In 1965, I remember clearly VJ Day and VE Day, and thinking about my parents talking about it in such depth. And I thought to myself, come on, people, move ahead. That's 20 years ago. Last month was the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and it happened like that. That's 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
9/11 is 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
Since then, I've had the best years of my athletic career.
There you go. Absolutely.
My economic success is probably exponentially higher than it was then. And the reason is because I took the time to do the 5-2 assignment in 1990 and 2002.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, let's segue a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about, because we've talked a lot about being in shape and being over 50, being over 60, being over 70, and being in great shape. And we kind of alluded to this. You talked about what you eat and some of these foundational exercises. But for somebody who's listening to this and is trying, maybe they're over 50 and trying to just now get into shape, what should he or she do? What is our prescription for our over 50 person who doesn't have that athletic background to pull on, perhaps?
Not a problem at all. The first thing I would do is make walking a central part of your day. I'm a big fan of murder mysteries. Bernie Rodenbar, the burglar who counted the spoons. That's the one I'm listening to right now. I have The Sword and the Stone. And so I go for a walk and I listen to chapters of books. I have a little park over here called Wheeler Farm. And they have these big circles around it. And I'll find myself walking 3 or 4 of them. And I'll come home and I'll see that I walk 4.2 miles on my little, the little thing on the phone. But so number one, first and foremost, walk. Number 2, When possible, try to do a few chores opposite. My dental assistant, my dental hygienist, has a really interesting thing. You should start brushing your teeth with the opposite hand. It's interesting to do things. I can guarantee the way you tie your shoes, if you think about it, you can't do it because you've done it since you're in kindergarten. So brushing your teeth with the offhand, by the way, it's also really good for your teeth. But then I've added this. Yeah, brush your teeth offhand. Try it normally and then take a foot up off the ground and you'll notice that you have no balance issues. Switch hands, take a foot up off the ground and you'll stumble. And that should be an indicator. So one of the things I'm trying to get across as often, so walk. Walk is the, okay, walk.
That's our foundation. Yeah. All right.
And then when possible, try to stand on one foot for household chores. Just don't be crazy about it. And when you're at the Xerox machine at work, do it one-footed, okay? Marching in place as slow as you can. And to the point that you actually hold the positions, okay? So walk, and then the one-footed stuff. And then look at what you're standing on. It's called the floor. I suggest to people get up and down off the floor as often as you can. And very few people have taken this advice, but I tell them, I don't care how much TV you want. In fact, watch all you want, but there's only one rule. You have to be on the floor when you watch TV. If you want an interesting workout, watch a football game on the floor. And you'll find as you roll up to this elbow, you roll back down, you roll up to this elbow,
Right.
you stand up to the knee. Whereas if you're a couch, you watch the whole game like this.
Yeah.
It's interesting because watching TV burns less calories than sleeping.
Yeah.
You are more metabolically active sleeping than you are watching TV.
Then you are binging on the couch, watching TV, binging.
Isn't that
Netflix.
interesting?
Yeah.
So that would be, so walk one foot, find some way to get up and down off the ground every day. One of the ways I challenge myself is every time I was going to take a shower, I did 2 push-ups. And then I used BJ Fogg's idea. I would do my two push-ups. I would stand up, clap my hands and go, yes, because that builds in the layers of success. So maybe you can't do a push-up, but maybe put a pad down in some place in the room that you go in. I mean, it can be simply a little piece of carpet, a throw rug, whatever you call them in your home, a runner. And every time you step on the runner, you have to do a push-up position plank and get back up. I didn't say an hour. I said, get down, lock out your elbows, stand back up. If you can do a push-up, every time you step on that runner, do 1 push-up, get back up. From there, by the way, that's not bad. Nutritionally, go with calorie less, 0-calorie beverages as much as you can, delicious tea, water, eat vegetables at every meal. I tell people, and they look at you like you're crazy, eat salad for breakfast. Mike Brown and I, when we go sometimes, Mike does this all the time. He orders Cobb salad for breakfast. And we'll be with somebody and they'll go, and you get this look on you, wait, you ordered a salad for breakfast? Yeah. And you'll get this like moment, you can see the person's shifting.
Wait a minute.
Wait, you can't leave. Wait, that's not a pancake or a piece of toast. Oh no. Right. Yeah, it's salad. Yeah. So I would say, 0-calorie beverages as often as you can. I'm a big fan of hot beverages. I think there's some value to drinking hot beverages, even if it's just hot water. Hot water with lemon, some will say, okay, whatever. Vegetables at every meal, fermented foods is appropriate. I like kimchi. And then lock in your sleep ritual. If you take care of that, then let's talk about push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry.
Yeah, So, okay. We've got our unconditioned person. We've got some great advice there. Let's get some whole foods that prioritize sleep and stress reduction. Let's get some movement and some sensible nutrition in us. Now let's level up a little bit. This person's maybe come along, right? And they're ready to start some push, pull, hinge, squat. And I know you've written and spoken a lot about strength standards in this space. Mm-hmm. And in this conversation, go ahead and include, because somebody's listening to this, somebody's doctor or some well-meaning professional somewhere has told them, if you're over 50, you can't deadlift. That's bad for your back. Or everybody knows that squatting is bad for your knees. If you're over 50, that movement's off limits. Maybe incorporate a little bit of that when you're talking about push, pull, hinge, and squat.
Well, first off, I can't believe anyone would be still that stupid to say those things. But hey, what
It's
do I know?
out there everywhere still. And I think it's getting
So,
better, but no, that advice is
yeah.
still out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think the movement of squatting should be done daily. I invented the goblet squat and I goblet squat. I sit at the bottom of a goblet squat for 30 seconds every single day. I hang from a bar 30 seconds every day. I call it my 1 minute mobility. 30 seconds sit, 30 seconds hang. And I got to tell you, I can't believe how much good that does for me. Again, it's like the 1 moment meditation, the 1 minute meditation. I have an entry somewhere on my YouTube site where I do this 3 minutes. I do it a little differently now, but it's close enough. So for 3 minutes, you take this is just a book, but Eat and Grow Thin by Vance Thompson, great book from 1915. So it takes 3 minutes to do this. First thing you do, well, it kind of depends on how you want to do it, but you turn on the 1 moment meditation. Bing! And you just try to quiet yourself for 1 minute. At the end of that 1 minute meditation, you open up that day's to-do list and you look and see, okay, podcast with Kevin at noon, be ready for that. Okay, do this, do this. Then I read my pirate map. I make sure I'm doing my pirate map. It takes about 1 minute to review my to-do list. And then I hop up on the bar, hang for 30 seconds, squat down and sit for 30 seconds. And that's 3 minutes to success. If I had an ice plunge pool, I'd jump in the ice plunge pool somewhere along the line, but I don't have one. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 minutes. Yeah. 3 minutes for success done daily. Yeah. That's going to have some
and
results.
So the hang and the sit will probably do more to mobilize the vast number of your listeners than all the nonsense crap I see online. What is this bullshit they say that you floss nerves? Holy cow. Or that tape they put on the 2012 Olympics to put muscles back in place. Folks, I asked my surgeon, what do you think of the tape that puts muscles in place? And he's a good surgeon. He worked in the NHL for years. And he's like, yeah, I don't know why they think that works. How can a muscle be put in place with a piece of duct tape? But okay, someone's going to email you about those two things.
Somebody's going to have an issue with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because they do. But it's like, yet hanging for 30 seconds, that's somehow bad. Or sitting in a goblet squat. But, yeah. I think that the bulk of your listeners should probably do a squat, a push, and a pull with the exact same reps and sets. Those are the hypertrophy movements. The mistake most of your listeners will make, they'll do far too many pushes. But I would recommend, if you can, a vertical push, a military press of some kind, overhead. Personally, I think you should do a vertical pull, which is a pull up, a lat pull down, a chin up. And by the way, if you can't do a pull up, just get an elastic band, step in it. I do sometimes when I'm feeling especially funny about my pull up, I'll put this big blue band on that I have, and it's almost like a pull on a pole vault. Woo! Woo!
Yeah. You can move through them.
And then the squat movement. I mean, if you just did 3 sets of 8 vertical press, 3 sets of 8 pull variation, 3 sets of 8, even if you just did goblet squats, that'd be great. That would be just fantastic. Then grab a dumbbell or a kettlebell in one hand and go for a little walk. It's called suitcase carry. Walk out, turn around, walk back. I wouldn't worry about the hinge at first. I really wouldn't. And this is just when we're talking about an untrained person, because I want the movement of the squat because of the mobility gains and the hypertrophy gains. In the hinge, personally, I would say look up the word hip thrust, glute bridge or hip thrust. The hip thrust for most clients over a certain age is far better. First thing, it's on the ground. So since it's on the ground, you get the double whammy of getting up and down off the ground. So that's right. A win. I do naked. In our language, naked means without resistance, but I put that glute loop around my knees. I push my knees apart, and then I do 15 hip thrusts, 15 clamshells. Clamshells when you push your knees out. 14, 14, 13, 13, 12, 12, all the way down to 1, 1. Yeah. And I'll tell you, when you finish that and stand up, your butt. It's the butt incinerator 5,000, not the same as the butt blaster 5,000. So really, it could be, I would prefer that as much as you can, gentle listener, that you hang and squat, you do some hypertrophy work, that vertical push, vertical pull, the squat, and then get up and down on those hip thrusts. And there you go. That's not bad. And the suitcase carry just for overall body tension, core work, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful prescription. If somebody did that 2-3 times a week, and as they advance, they could move up in weights, they would see.
If they did that 3 times a week, they wouldn't. They would be. I would be listening to them. I would be on their podcast. Yeah.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great prescription. And back to your earlier point, I mean, and you had mentioned you're doing a strength program for weight loss, and I think that a lot of people, when they hear weight loss, what's been conditioned into the general population is this idea that, well, we're going to reduce calories and we're going to hit the cardio. And that advice has been around forever, and it's failed us forever.
Yes, it doesn't work. Yeah.
It just doesn't. It doesn't work, and there's a number of reasons it doesn't work.
Can you look up and include in the show notes on my YouTube channel? I have a thing called Easy Strength for Fat Loss, and just share that with them. The Hibernate site has a whole there how the one guy lost like 10 pounds and put 60 pounds on his deadlift, almost without thinking in a couple of weeks. So basically, gentle listener, it works out like this. I don't eat when I wake up. Oh my God, I know. It's called fasting, and I invented it. Okay.
Don't get fancy. It's intermittent fasting these days.
Well, whatever. Yeah. It's choosing not to eat, but I drink a ton of coffee, and I don't eat anything until I train. And what I do to train is I do a basic strength workout, nothing to failure, no misses, very simple. For you guys, you could do 2 sets of 5 in a press, 2 sets of 5 of a pull, 2 sets of 5 in a deadlift, 2 sets of 5 in the goblet squat, and then walk.
Yeah.
And you walk for half an hour, 45 minutes. And Rusty Moore believes that the weightlifting frees up the free fatty acids. And then when you walk, the walk consumes those free fatty acids. I started the year off at 251 and I'm 218 now because I redid that 2-decade assignment when I found out about Leo, my grandson. And when people say, well, what's your secret? You look so lean. I got a guy last night at the bar. I played trivia on Monday nights with my team, which was my daughters. And a guy from Texas was there, and he goes, are you Dan John? I go, yeah. I go, you look really lean. I go, oh, thank you. And I told him what I do, and it's like, even when I just told you, it's like, wait, there's got to be more to that. No.
Got to be more, yeah.
I do, in my Olympic lifting workout, it's 18 reps. It's 3 sets of 3 in the front squat, 3 sets of 3 in the squat snatch, 3 sets of 3 in the squat cleaner press. And I walk out the door, and people go, how's that leaning you out? Well, A, it's the Olympic lifts, and B, the exercise frees up the free fatty acid, and then I eat them as I walk. And yeah, I think the fermented food helps a lot. I think adding fiber to my diet helps a lot. Yes, I get that. But when you go from 251 to 218 seamlessly, effortlessly, you gotta sit back and go, there's more to this than just, yeah. And so the reason I like this program, do I sweat? I breathe hard, but it's not bad. I mean, it's not, it's not terrible, especially in a day like today where we're in the 70s today. I didn't sweat on my walk today. It was nice. It was effortless. And this is the
sweating
program.
Is optional. That's what you're saying for the weight loss.
Well, and it's interesting, Kevin, as I got that theology background, and even non-believers slide to the 7 deadly sins when it comes to why they got obese. It's gluttony and either sloth or sloth, depending on where you're from. I ate too much, I was a pig, and I was lazy. So I'm going to turn things around by not eating and exercising to extreme. Folks, not eating and exercising to extreme, unless someone's got a whip in their hand, you're not going to do it. I mean, it has to be a terrible situation for you to actually do that. And we're not built between the ears to handle that. And that's why I think some of my ideas are kind of fun, because it's repeatable, doable. And that's unusual.
Yeah, something, and that's why diets fail typically, is they're just not sustainable long term. And we could talk a lot about why diets fail, but certainly anything that's
Yeah.
not sustainable that you can't weave into the fabric of your life moving forward isn't going to have long term effects. And I'm always surprised when I meet otherwise very intelligent people that go on a diet, they do something very difficult. Let's say they hit their goal weight. I need to lose 15 pounds. They lose that 15
Yeah.
pounds and they, oh,
And
thank
hats
God
off.
that's over. That was such an ordeal. And then they're baffled by why 6 months to a year later, they're right back where they started or worse. Now they got 20 pounds to lose.
Usually I tell people this and they don't like to hear this, but do you remember the day you started your first diet? Yes. That's probably the best you've ever looked, right?
Yeah, that's a telling statement right there. Yeah.
The day you start your first diet is probably the best you ever looked. I think about these high school girls I work with, and it's like, honestly, take a picture of yourself and send it to yourself when you're 35. And then here's the other thing. Take a picture of yourself at 35 and send that to yourself at 65 or 64 in my case. And you'll look back on that picture as I did just a few hours ago. There's a picture of me. They did an article on me. It's called The History Lessons of Dan John. It's a nice article in a magazine. It's about, it's about my life story and my athletic career. It's a good lesson. I was surprised. And there's a picture of me, and God damn if I don't look like a model. But the thing is,
Yeah.
Kevin, I was 40, not 64. I was ugly as sin back then, but less ugly as sin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've often thought it'd be interesting to get, I don't know, your 15-year-old self, your 25, your 35, 45, 55, and 65, 75-year-old self all into a room and everybody be talking to the 50-year-old self. I mean, throwing advice at the 50-year-old. Please don't drink beer. Begging you don't smoke cigarettes. We're asking you, stay away from, do not do crack cocaine. Don't drive like an asshole. The 25-year-old self, would you please put money aside? Please put money aside. And here's the funny thing. And this is the hardest thing to tell. I taught a long time, and it's one of the hardest truths. You knew this. My friend Chris Long, not so long ago, put up a post on this thing called the Facebooks, which has an algorithm that incites hate among Americans. Oh, sorry. But he said, every so often I'll read that I never learned any valuable stuff in high school. You never taught me this. You never taught me this. And he has this little line at the bottom. He says, yes, we did. You didn't listen. So I taught one called Christian Life, and I taught economics. And in those classes I would talk about, and I had assignments where I teach the students about it. The assignment was called My Life is My Message, where they would plan their finances, their physical, all, very much. It's funny how this 5-2 assignment is not unlike that assignment. And I've had students tell me, I was smarter at 17 than I am now. There's 27. Because they knew that if they, these parents pushing these poor kids off to these highly expensive schools, because it sounds good at a party. My son is going to, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he comes out of school with a $200,000 debt. Good luck buying a house. Good luck retiring. My daughters, because of the book Never Let Go, never had any debt from college, a bachelor's and master's. I told them I'd pay for everything. Well, they both own homes, and they're sitting back going, how do my friends not own homes? And I lean in like,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but those are those life lessons. And the same is true, Kevin, in our field. Listen, everybody knows you shouldn't have dessert 10 times a day. Everybody knows that if you drink alcohol as a answer to some of things, alcohol is fine. I got nothing against booze. I like booze. In fact, I think a lot of people I know are alive because I was drunk and I didn't kill them. But don't, all those things mom told you are all, grandma told you, they're all true.
Yeah.
They're all true.
Yeah. Huh? Eat your veggies, get good sleep.
Eat like an adult.
Walk, play outside. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom there. And that's one of the benefits that we have aging, right? We have all this wisdom, hopefully. We have all these life lessons. And now if we can just keep our bodies and our minds in the game and looking forward, not looking backwards, I think we got a lot of potential here as an older generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of what's next, Dan, what do you got on the horizon? I mean, you've accomplished a lot. What's next for you?
Well, I want to lift in the 96 kilo category. That's big to me. I want to be around for my grandkids. And that's big to me. I got a course coming out maybe next week. In fact, this afternoon, I'll get some more delicious fermented food inside of me, and maybe some and I'll finish this up today or tomorrow. I've got a few things in my life. My motto is make a difference. I just signed up on this thing. I want to make Utah more green. So I don't know how it's going to help, but we're trying to. I sent money. I'm going to send money in monthly to they're going to start capturing bio waste and turn that into power for Utah. And they want, so instead of taxing it, I'm volunteering giving money. I want to. I've got a lot of little things I want to do. I've rethought about things like books in the last couple of months, and I've rethought about a few other things. But basically, I want to expand my business, and I want to keep leaning out, man, and keep putting weights overhead and hanging out, make my grandson laugh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Be a shining example for him as well.
Yeah. Read a lot more murder mysteries that are,
And that's right. Yeah. Do things you love.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've got a couple of websites. Your main website seems to be danjohnuniversity.com. You've also got I think it's just danjohn.net maybe as well. Just talk to people a little bit about what they can find on Dan John University. Sure. Talk about your workout calculator. Tell folks what's there.
Sure. So danjohn.net is the library, and there's thousands of free articles there. If you want more information, I've got a bunch of free books there. One on discus throwing, one on weightlifting, one on parenting, one on kettlebells, and God knows what else is in there. But it's just a library. It's a resource. It's free. Dan John University has all the newer stuff, all the newer articles. It's got a download page that, you end up, there's probably 20 or 30, at least booklets, if not full-blown books in there. And lots and lots of people really think that's a great resource. I have a lot of essays there. Wonderful forum in there. Great people. The nice thing about that forum is no one's a jerk, which is very nice. And then there's a thing called the workout generator, where you put in what equipment you have, how many days a week, how intense, just a few simple yes/no questions. Then you press a button and it spits out a workout for you. And then you can still micro adjust a few things. Like, for example, maybe you don't want a goblet squat. You want to do a suspension band assisted. Fine. You just click the button. You can just scroll it up and down. That comes from the mind of Brian Gwaltney. I can't do better than my own workout generator because it is my work, but with AI. It's got that. So when you say you only have kettlebells, we don't have to have that conversation of, well, do you have, that it's whenever you work online with somebody, you spend so much time. Dan, I want to do this Olympic lifting program in the Big 21. Well, good. Well, what day are you on? Well, I don't have an Olympic bar. Well, then you can't do the program. You can't. I want to do the 10,000 kettlebell swing. What kind of kettlebell you have? I don't have one. You can't do the program. I want to be a swimmer. What kind of pool do you have? I don't have a pool near me. Lake, none. Ocean, none. River, none. Stream, none. Curb, you could take a hose and your friend can spray. What the hell? How am I supposed to answer all these questions? Yeah. I live near the mountains here, with the greatest snow on earth here in Utah. And people come out, and it's interesting because they'll be like, I'm the best skier in, Iowa. And it's like, yeah, well, it'd be like me going to go, brag about my surfing, when I go to SoCal or Hawaii. It's like, if you don't have the equipment, you don't have the stuff, you can't do it,
Right. Yep. All right. So folks, if you don't know how to get started, don't know what to do on your workouts, go check that out. That is danjohnuniversity.com. Tons of legacy information and the library, like you said, at danjohn.net. And folks, check out the Dan John podcast. I believe it's a weekly show, right, Dan?
Yeah.
That's once a week. Yeah. Weekly show. Great information there. I don't miss it. As a coach, I I'm like a sponge trying to take in as much information as I can anyway. And
Yeah,
your
and I
typical
get
format
angry.
is your,
I get
go ahead.
right. I get pissy and I get angry and I rant and
Oh yeah. Oh no, absolutely. No, not going to hold any punches here. It's a lot of
so,
fun. And basically you're answering questions from just all walks of life, all kinds of questions. Very, very, very informative and very educational, but also very entertaining as well. So, and I'll drop all that into the show notes. And then finally, Dan, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to
well, if you
get in
have
touch?
questions, podcast at danjohnuniversity.com or just there's the Dan John Q&A at davedraper.com. Of course, then there's the forum at danjohnuniversity.com. It's real easy to get a hold of me. I answer dozens of emails every day, lots of phone calls. It's just not a big deal. I'm happy to help. Just be polite and try to make the world a better place, and I'm happy to help you.
Right on. Well spoken. Well, Dan, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all of your knowledge and your wisdom as well as your story with us. You are a fantastic ambassador for healthy aging, and I certainly wish you all the best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And gentle listeners, I'm here to help. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, folks, that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. As we wrap up today's show, I have a favor to ask. Would you consider sharing this episode with someone who you think would enjoy hearing Dan's message? Now, statistics tell us that only 15% of people over 55 listen to podcasts, so the easiest way to share this episode is to send them the link to this show, and they can listen right there on the website. The link is silveredgefitness.com/episode 83. And there you'll also find all the links to all the resources we discussed in this episode, and you can continue the conversation over there as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on today's show. Also, I want to let you know that if you enjoyed today's show, I have more free resources over at silveredgefree.com. There you can find my mini guides with my top tips on nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle. So head over there, scroll through the guides, and download whatever you feel would be useful for you. Oh, and don't forget to sign up for the Holiday Accountability Program. Again, it's 100% free to enroll. Just shoot me an email at coach@silveredgefitness.com saying you want in. As we wrap up our time together today, you can always show your support for this show by giving this podcast a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today, and until next time, stay strong.